I'm going to get myself out of the way. I get the pleasure of introducing this lady. I'm really excited about this. She is here on the West Coast in Northern California. When she started this business, her and her husband hit the ground running. I believe, and just correct me if I'm wrong, they hit RVP in like 3 years, which is whoa. Okay. And I've been blessed to see her speak in many diverse crowds, ACN stage, hosting AC events in her own town, and also intimate groups, such as Lake Tahoe. If you have not been, that's a great place also for training. She started our April here, our second quarter, with this. He qualifies the call. She said she sheds a beam of light. Anyone who hears from her will usually get a good word from her to take with them with encouragement and inspiration. I got a chance to, I can say this, got a chance to hang out with her and her daughter and her team in Dallas at the event, which was really cool. I felt like I was part of the it crowd for a second, so it was pretty cool. This is the one cool thing I love about her. She is a woman of God and professes her faith in such a dynamic way that it provokes me personally to live out my truth, my faith, dynamically and unapologetically. I give to you guys RVP Jocelyn Driskill.
But thank you so much, Harrison, for the introduction. It's so kind of you to share all those wonderful things. I'm all that, but I am a child of God, first and foremost. And I'm really grateful to be here. Harrison, anytime you walk into any space, you light up the space yourself. It's always a pleasure to have you anywhere near wherever I am. I love you coming in. What you have to share and what you bring to the table is very powerful. So always believe that. And please find me anywhere you are, because I love when you walk into my space. So thank you for being present here today, leading this Zoom call leadership for Mr. Al Thomas's. What he does here with this leadership is beyond phenomenal. Like I said last week, not everybody does this, you guys, and I am truly honored to have been asked to do this for Mondays in April. I don't take it lightly. I prepare and I love that this team is here to support and to learn and to grow. I can tell you, Mr. Jabri Clemens and I have many conversations, and I'm so grateful for all that he does on the back end. You don't see him too much on camera, but man, that guy puts a lot of hours in to put YouTube videos out and to support each and every one of us. And, if you get a chance, can you please say you're grateful for his time and attention and care to each and every one of us. So thank you, Mr. Clemens. We love you. So with that being said, I'm going to dive in here because I have some things to share that I hope really give you something to. I love starting on Mondays because I really feel like if I can give you this for your week, that you can do something different that you didn't do last week. And I know we ended last week on the message unqualified. And as Harrison said, God doesn't call God qualifies, right? The called. So we are all unqualified, and that is the truth. And when you can stand in that and accept it, and then realize that he's calling you, and he will qualify that calling. And that's important to know. So I will always bring a message that brings him into the center of it, because that's how I run my life. That's how I get through the tragedies and the heartaches and the things that happen, whether it's in life or business. We grow through all of this together. We're here together to do this together, and that's the power of ACN. And, there's people out there that will watch this YouTube that aren't a part of, what we're doing here as business owners in ACN, and they're in careers and run other businesses. And I hope to shed a light there where they know that they can bring him to the center of all that they do, which will only create a better world that we live in, right? So today's message, let's dive in what today's message is. It is about how you see time. Time is not your stop sign. How many of you know that the expectation of time is a killer? It is. So if you have this time expectation, no matter what you're doing in life, whether it's newly diving into relationship and finding God's choice for your life, who you're gonna marry, you're young and you're older and you're stepping into that. It doesn't matter what age you are, but a lot of people they fret over how long that takes, right? And then you start making your own decisions about who's the best one for you, and you might just choose wrong, right? I'm going to dive into a lot of things when it comes to what we put time limits on. I mean, diving into ACN, are you putting a time limit? Now, doesn't mean you don't set goals and you don't have dreams, and it doesn't mean that God didn't give you a vision for where you're going to be. But he doesn't see, there is no time in heaven. God doesn't live by a clock. Right? So when we're looking at building a business and we're facing a time clock, we are doing ourselves a disservice because we're pushing ourselves to a place that we're not ready for. So not only is time not your stop sign, because just because you didn't hit executive team leader in the time frame you wanted, or you didn't hit regional coordinator or regional director in the time frame that you thought was the vision, or you thought and gave yourself that time, and just because you didn't hit it, how many of you have seen people quit when it was based on time? Not just here in ACN, but in anything in life. They gave up. See, the point that you do that is the point that where you look as a failure, and failure is growth. You've heard me say before that you fail forward. Life is full of failures, but they're not bad. Why do we see failure as always bad? It's growth. It's how we learn. It's how we become better. It's how we become our best self in life, right? So we have to really take this time that stops us and makes us question our calling. Don't put a time on it. Put a goal on it. Project a time. Go after it and grow through it and to it. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay. So Harrison, I know you said we hit RVP in about 3 years. It was like 2 years and 2 months, which, you know, I'm not boasting that. I'm just saying Tony and I set a goal, and we didn't put a time limit on it. We just set a goal, and we did the work, and we grew, and we showed up at leaderships, and we showed up at events, and we continued to learn and power through the struggle. See, the struggle is not your stop sign either. Just because you're struggling, you got to push through that. I think always about that butterfly, the butterfly that started off as a caterpillar in the cocoon, right? If you cut that cocoon any sooner than the butterfly is ready to come out, you will kill that butterfly. The butterfly has to go through the struggle to get out of that cocoon so that he can survive and fly. So that is the power of the struggle, and it is not your sign to stop. So I'm going to share a video with you that's about 12 to 15 minutes. It's going to go fast. I can tell you that because it's with Pastor Stephen Furtick from Elevation Church. And he is in a interview with his new book called Do the New You. And it's with a success coach. His name is Brandon Burchard. I think that's it, Burchard, yeah. And he's a success coach. And they had this conversation about the struggle not being your stop sign, talking about the time. But I want you to take 3 major points away from this clip that I'm going to share with you. So I want you to really intentionally pay attention, because they're going to talk about success versus failure, removing the element of time, stop seeing time as your stop sign. This is, saying to yourself, this is taking too long. What's wrong with me? What am I not doing right? You show up at leaderships, you're taking notes, and you're still not getting to where you're going. But as I mentioned last leadership, that it's your intention, not your ability, right? You're growing your ability, but what are you intentionally doing every day? I bet each and every one of you could say you weren't intentional every day last week. Did you show up for you last week for your business, right? And maybe one day you did and the next day you didn't. So you can't look at time when you're not intentionally actually taking those actions. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So you can't quit and give up and question your calling and question where you are and question ACN and does this work and does this not work, when it's all about intention. But time cannot be that stop sign for you. It is all to say for you, keep pushing, keep growing. It's your growth time. So God gave me a vision. So why is it taking so long? That vision again, I'm going to go back to the vision. Have all of you had a vision of what that looks like when you do a certain position, or you've met mark and then you're pushing through to the next mark, right? So I know you see it, but don't see the clock with it. So let's dive in message, because I'm going to tell you it's powerful when you add it to what I'm talking about here.
This business challenge relative to my industry, this rhythm of my life that feels completely unsustainable. And while I don't always think that we should seek out more struggle, I think we have to know that when we struggle, God gives strength. If you can know that in those moments and say to God, the greatest 3-word prayer that I never heard, help me fail. I don't ask God to help me fail. I want him to help me win, help me succeed, help me crush, help me kill, help me destroy, I want to win.
You're saying help me stretch. Help me grow.
Help me grow.
For those who are like an aversion to fail, but I think it is important that
well, I chose the language help me fail because it's inevitable that you are going to feel like you're failing, but maybe you're not. That's what I think is so interesting about you being a success coach, is that some people go, well, a success coach, is that really scriptural to success? Well, first of all, God told Joshua, I'll give you good success. Mm-hmm. The kind of success that God gives, a good success where you make a difference for him and you don't rip your life apart. I mean, you wrote a whole book called High Performance Habits about people who are not just succeeding over here and then making a mess of their relationships or destroying their health. God wants to bring all these things to integration in our life. But I think just as important as what's our definition of success is the question, what's your definition of failure? Who said it failed?
Right.
We talked in an earlier masterclass about disappointment, and disappointment is relative to time. And when you remove the element of time, you don't have to be disappointed because it's going to happen and it's in God's hands.
Yeah.
So what do you walk people through when they're experiencing what they perceive to be failure, but as a coach, this is a growth moment. This is a growth season.
Yeah. I think the first part is always, as I said earlier, just remove the surprise from people. It's like they're so shocked that they had a bad performance. I was like, you've been on tour for 3 years. You didn't think one of them you were going to suck? Or you just remove like the struggle and the failure. It is going to be there. And it is a personal definition. You thought you failed, but 15,000 people chanted. You thought you failed, but you weren't arrested the next day. You thought, we have these cataclysmic things about failure, and we always realize failure is a personal definition. So first I want to go, why were you surprised? Second, what is your definition? Tell me, what does that mean that you failed? And what's interesting, when people use the terminology of failure, they drop into the fixed mindset right away because they believe that the failure stopped something. I failed. And it's just like this defined event, and their progress stopped and their growth will stop. And so their definition of failure often comes with it, like a stop sign. And I have to say, oh, there's no stop sign. That was an incident in life. Tomorrow there's gonna be 40 other incidents. That was one struggle, you're gonna have another 1,000. So there was no stop sign. It was something that occurred, but it occurred in the stream of life. And now you're downstream of that difficulty, and now you're gonna face another boulder that's similar. Okay, how are you gonna navigate this one? Because that's what that gave you. That difficulty gave you navigation instructions. It wasn't a failure, it was a navigation instruction manual. It was like,
I love that.
Hey, okay, you hit this thing, it didn't go right. That boulder is going to appear in the stream again, probably a lot of times until you learn, right? So now you know the boulder's coming up. Well, let me skill up. Let me learn how to navigate that. Let me learn how to use my oar and snap my hip in the kayak to pop around that boulder.
Yeah.
Let me skill up so next time I face it, I'm a little stronger.
Yeah.
I'm a little smarter. I'm a little more wise. And so that's a developmental standpoint. It doesn't say, I stopped there, it's forever fixed, I'm always gonna be ruined here. It says, that's probably gonna come up again. Let me teach myself, how would the best self deal with it? How would I skill up to deal with it better? It's taking a struggle that's inevitable, and it's equipping ourselves for the future. And maybe what came out of that struggle is, I'm gonna equip myself to be kinder next time. I'm gonna equip myself to be more patient. I'm gonna equip myself to develop a skill that I can do this or that, so that it doesn't feel so harsh or surprising or awful next time, because that's maturity, as we get better at things.
Yeah.
Like you do as a speaker, right? My metaphor for that would be, I trained myself to speak to a small group, and then a slightly bigger group, and a slightly bigger group, and the problem was, I was, probably level of 1,000 people. I still felt like I wanted to throw up before going out there.
Yeah.
And I had to say, I need to train myself to be in a good place to handle life's challenges. And that's what I want people to hear, is like, the struggles are inevitable. Train yourself to be in a good place, learning from your past lessons, and preparing yourself now for the struggle that you're in. Because the season that you're in, which is why I love the chapter title here, it's like the season that you're in, you're equipped, you're emboldened, you got backing, and you have to step in faith and stay in motion and not hit the stop sign.
Step in faith, because the struggle is not a stop sign. It's a strength builder. It's a struggle builds strength. So write these two down. Struggle builds strength. Not all struggle. Some struggle, you're struggling because you're stubborn. Like, you're not supposed to still be struggling with this. You're supposed to apologize. Quit trying to prove you're right. But when the struggle is something that God is taking you through and leading you through, it's going to build strength.
Don't put a stop sign on the struggle.
Don't put a stop sign on the struggle.
Especially when it's bad and you didn't want it. I mean, I know you minister to people who've their struggle or their challenge in this season, and they lost a child. And when you tell them, well, just be strong through it, it sounds so flippant. But sometimes when you say, there will be strength, you'll be provided for, but also don't stop there. Don't forget you do have maybe another child, or don't forget that your life doesn't have to stop because they were called. And so I think it's a matter of, when our struggles hurt us and there's no growth from them, is when we put that stop sign and we think that ended our life, that ended our progress, that ended our reputation. And so when I say don't put a stop sign on a struggle, it's not trying to say that anyone ever wanted those terrible things that happened to us that are our struggles and problems. It's saying, when you have that terrible thing and that awful thing, and you can't find the strength.
Yeah.
When they hear guys like us say, well, there's strength there, and they're like, there's no strength that came from this awful, I lost my dad. There's no strength from that, Brendan. I go, yeah, it doesn't feel like it. And you might be right, but don't stop living, because your dad didn't want you to stop living. He doesn't want you to stop living. And so the most important thing, when you say that there's a season for everything and that God is with you there, is don't put stop signs on the struggle.
How was that for each and every one of you? Yeah. Did you take more than 3 points away from that? Yeah, there's so much depth to that, and that's just a portion. That's the end of their conversation and what they talk about. So you can always go back to that. It's on YouTube. It's Pastor Furtick and success coach Brendan Burchard, and then it's on Pastor Furtick's book called The New You. So it's a section of his book. And it's called, actually, it's titled Embrace Your Now. Embrace Your Now. So let me go through a couple things that I wrote down. Growth happens at the point of failure. Did any of you write that down? So the moment you fail and you step away and you walk away, guess what you didn't do? You didn't grow. You're stifling that growth because you're not allowing the failure to be okay. And again, they talk about what's your definition of failure. You really, I was at church this weekend and he was talking about truth, right? Truth. What is the definition of truth? Everybody has a different definition of truth, but to me, there's only one definition. It's the word, it's the Bible. The only truth, that's the only thing that can't be debated, in my opinion. That's my opinion. But if you listen to anybody respond to what is the definition of truth, you're going to hear different things, right? In this world. So it's the world versus the word, in my opinion. But that's another subject. So growth happens at the point of failure. Where we struggle, God gives strength. So the song that I played in the beginning that Jabri put on for us, it was called Strong. If you want to download that song, it's by Ann Wilson, A-N-N-E Wilson, Strong. She's a country girl, so she speaks to my country roots, but she's also a Christian artist as well. She does both. And that song just always gets me. But strength comes from the struggle. That's the growth, right? And then are you willing to say, God, help me grow, help me fail, right? Isn't that an eye opener when he was talking about help me to fail? So maybe look at it differently. Focus on helping me to fail. And that's when more growth is going to happen. And the time that you think something should happen, I think if you really step in to being okay with failure and not looking at time, something's going to shift and change. And those promotions with that intention that you have, and we're not focused on the promotion, but what hitting those positions can do for you in this business, right? Getting to time and money. We talked about that last week. And, they mentioned in this interview about loss and the struggle in loss. And I know that better than anyone. And I know some of you have had great loss yourself. But it's not the time for us to stop. Those who have gone before us, it was just that they were called home. That's what I know for Tony, as hard as it is, as I talked about last week. But that doesn't mean my life has to stop. I have to honor the life that we shared. And I got to keep going, and I got to keep living out the dreams and the goals and the visions that we carried together. And I'm just doing it differently, and I'm growing through it, and God's giving me strength to do that. Can you all do that? Can we all say yes? Yes, I'm going to grow. I'm going to fail forward, right? Another point he made, this is really a strong one. The difficulty gave you navigation instructions. Did anybody write that one down? Yeah, Harrison, I bet you did. The difficulty gave us navigation instructions. Sit in that a while and think about what that means. I think that's something for us to ponder on. So we should be asking, help me fail. understand when you look at time and you look at failure and you don't look at it the way I'm trying to coach you through it and help you see it, you're allowing the enemy to step in. The enemy will catch you at that point where you say, I'm going to quit because that's taking too long. It's not meeting my time frames. I'm failing too much. Guess what? He creeps right in and he captures you in your weakness and he helps you to quit. If you can see that at that point and understand, oh no, you're not taking me. I'm not going down with your ship. I'm going to sail this ship into my future. And who's the anchor? When you have to put the anchor down, who's your anchor? You can anchor that in the ocean at some point. It's okay to anchor if you have the right anchor. That just came to me. So I'm speaking to somebody when it comes to that. The ship can stop for a second, but it's not going down because you have the right anchor. We good? Okay. So I just want to finish up with knowing that you guys got your bullet points, but Pastor Furtick talked about something. I want you to see this for yourself. How many of you, like me, and like us, it was Brandon that said it, get sick to your stomach thinking about going on the stage and talking, even going in front of a few people, right? And that's a human thing because we're thinking we're being judged and all of that, right? And are we going to do our best, and are we going to make an impact, and are we going to say the right things? You know, if you pray first, that's my opinion. If you pray first, he will make it all right. And you can go out there and still have the butterflies, because I think it's growth and it's good when the butterflies still come, and you don't, because that means you care what you're bringing to that presentation or that stage. So don't look at it as a bad thing. It's okay. I think even years later, you should still feel that way. So Pastor Furtick, in the beginning of his, in that interview, he mentioned how he thought, when the shutdown happened and the pandemic came and everything was basically shut down, churches and all of that stuff, people weren't going to churches. Well, his church is in North Carolina. Well, they set it up, and he felt like God called them to, keep going, but put it on YouTube, put it live on stream, right? And so he said he was standing on that stage, and there's, the cameraman and all, a few of them, and a few people in the audience, his wife, so there's a few people, and he's like, oh my gosh, how can I make an impact here? And he goes off stage feeling kind of, defeated. And he's like, who's watching? There's nobody in the room. There's how many seats in an auditorium and a church, a mega church like that, right? And there's nobody there. But guess what? His shoot, my thing went. Come on, internet. You can hear me, right? But he walks off stage and he says to the stage manager, or whoever it was, I can't remember what he said. He said, "Man, I feel sort of defeated," something like that. I'm not, who am I speaking to? He goes, you just spoke to the most people you ever spoke to in your history. There were 15,000 people watching you that day. So you just don't know what God's doing when something is about to change, and something that you're going through, and great loss, or anything that's going on in your life. Just keep stepping in. Have that anchor in the water that is what's going to keep you. And then you can pull that anchor up, and it's going to go with you, and you're going to keep sailing. You're going to keep going. So don't stop. Don't look at the time and the struggle as your stop sign. And remember, here's one more share with you. Remember Remember, no one ever glided into the promised land. You're not going to take a glide. It's not going to look like that. There's kind of a promised land there. It's beautiful and green, right? It reminds me of the mountains that are behind me at our house. But you are never going to glide into the promised land. So you have to understand that, be intentional every day, set your goals, keep dreaming. The vision didn't lie. The vision is not a lie. It's there. Just like me writing this book. I'm going on my 3rd year. I'm just staying faithful, and it is ready, and God says go. And this book is coming out. He's ready for it now. So I'm just telling you, you have everything that you need because you are equipped. You won't glide into the promised land, but the promised land is promised to you. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it back to Harrison, the one smiling, taking notes and keeping this thing going today. And Mr. Clemens on the back end. Love you all so much. I'm so grateful that you're showing up here. And I hope that my message has taken one life and made an impact, because that's all I care about. It's God's glory that gets it all. So
Oh my
thank you for
goodness.
being here.